On this edition of the Yakama Nation Career Pathways, we head to the Upper Yakima River to the town of Cle Elum. Today we are going to be touring the Upper Yakima River Supplementation Complex. On our tour, we're going to visit with two Yakama Nation employees, Marquita Pinkham and Charlie Strom. Before we take a look at the activities going on at the hatchery today, let's take a moment and let Charlie walk us through some of the background on this hatchery complex.
So yes, behind me is our Cle Elum Supplementation and Research Facility, better known as the Levi George Hatchery, which is operated and maintained by the Yakama Nation. Here we have spring Chinook, solely spring Chinook, and we have the ability to hold 810,000 spring Chinook. And then from there, we'll transfer them to 3 acclimation sites, and then rear them for their imprint and release them in the spring, and hopeful efforts that they'll return in 3 to 4 years as adults. I guess this facility was constructed in '97, and it was designed on the principles of supplementation. And Yakama Nation historically has been it's a tribe that relied on salmon, and through mitigation of dams, the construction of dams, populations decreased dramatically. So this was an effort funded by Bonneville Power, and it had been thoroughly researched that this Upper Yakima Basin had a pretty good run of spring Chinook historically, and it was in a pretty healthy, I guess it was healthy enough where we could try our efforts to restore them. And if we took from the wild, we wouldn't be mining that population, so to speak. If something went drastically wrong, there would always be fish left in the rivers. So that's the supplementation idea. But it was designed, and there's a lot of efforts from former councilmen like Levi George, who this facility is named after, that wanted the Yakama Nation to be actually involved hands-on. To give you an idea, in the past, when they weren't in the production efforts, they would probably go to different facilities when they had surplus salmon, pull up with some totes, take the carcasses and take them back to the tribe, freeze them, and that's how they were getting some of their, I guess, ceremonial or fish for use for tribal customs. Well, Levi George's vision is that we wanted to be doing something on the ground. We wanted to be doing something to put fish back in the rivers, actively be part of it. As you know, native culture is they're pretty much tied to the resources, and so it was Levi's vision and others like Levi that are pretty much why we're here today.
Now that we have some background information on the hatchery, why don't we take a walk outside and see what's actually occurring at the hatchery today. Spring Chinook have arrived, it's fall, and that means it's spawning season. On a spawning day, the hatchery is a hive of activity. After spending a few years in the ocean, these spring Chinook have endured a long migration, swimming thousands of miles through the ocean, back up the Columbia River, and eventually up the Yakima River, where they remain as broodstock waiting to be spawned. Once the spring Chinook are ready to spawn, biologists, technicians, and fishculturists climb into the holding pens and begin to sort the fish. They sort them by their gender and also by their origin, whether they're wild fish or hatchery-raised fish. Once they're done with the sorting processes, biologists go in and they grab the fish individually and euthanize them before the spawning process begins. Once the fish have been euthanized, they are then bled and put on a cart. Then biologists take these fish on a quick ride over to a different area where some data will be collected on each one of the fish before they're spawned. Data collection is all part of the hatchery's monitoring and evaluation program. This information is extremely important. It allows the hatchery to understand how healthy their fish are and if the program is meeting its objectives. Each fish receives a unique identifying number, and then all of the data that's collected on that date is associated with it. While the biologists collect data, they are then delivering this information to another person who is entering it all into the computer. Dalen Isaac is a statistician for the Yakama Klickitat Fisheries project, and today he was assisting the hatchery with data entry. After data is collected on each fish, they are then spawned. Fishculturists and biologists collect milk from the males, and similarly, they extract eggs from the females. Once the milk and the eggs are collected from the fish, they then go indoors to another group of individuals who will continue the rest of the spawning process. Before the eggs are fertilized, even more data is collected for the monitoring and evaluation of the hatchery operations. The eggs are weighed, and then a subsample of those eggs is also weighed so they can get an idea of the actual number of eggs that came from each one of the females. This is called fecundity. A few of these eggs are taken and stored so that further tests can be ran on them as needed. Once data collection on the eggs is complete, the eggs are transferred to another group of people who will actually go through and fertilize the eggs. The eggs from each female are divided into 3 different containers. Each one of these females has her eggs fertilized by 3 different males. Spawning each female with 3 different males ensures that there will be adequate genetic diversity. Once the milk has been added to the eggs, water is then also added, which allows the milk to thoroughly mix with the eggs and fertilize all of them. Once the eggs are fertilized, they're then put in an iodine bath. Iodine helps to kill off any unwanted bacteria that could be harmful to the eggs. Fertilized eggs are then moved to incubation stacks where they receive constant, clean, oxygenated water. As time goes on, these eggs will mature and they'll begin to take on the actual appearance of a fish. The yolk sac on each one of these fish provides them nourishment until they're large enough to fend for themselves. At this point, the salmon become fry and they begin to freely swim on their own. The fry are then transferred to raceways at the hatchery. These juvenile fish will remain in the raceway for over a year. During this time, these fish are cared for by fishculturists. They have their raceways cleaned and they're fed a diet of pellet food. Throughout their stay at the hatchery, data is collected on these fish regularly to ensure that they are healthy and that they are gaining the proper amount of weight. Eventually, the spring Chinook are transferred to an acclimation facility. At the acclimation facility, they become accustomed to the scent of that river or creek, and that enables them to hone in on that scent when they return from the ocean. Eventually, these fish will migrate out on high flows during the spring, head on out to the ocean, and then hopefully after a few years there, they'll be able to make their way back to the Yakama River. Now you have an understanding of some of the activities that occur at the Upper Yakima River Supplementation Complex. Now let's go back and check in with our 2 experts, Marquita and Charlie, and get a little more information on their background and what it takes to become an employee and work at this complex.
Charles Strom, complex manager, and recently 5 months ago Yakama Basin production coordinator for Yakama Nation.
My name is Marquita Lee Pinkham and I'm a fishculturist too. We raise fish for everyone. They're supplemental fish and these are fish that are raised for everyone to basically harvest for cultural or even sportsmen too.
Okay. So I think this fisheries in general is important to the nation because we're so culturally, traditionally, the salmon are important. Not only salmon, you got steelhead, you got lamprey. All the aquatic life was a big part of our culture. Well, this facility, Cleellum, the Klickitat, you got the Prosser, you have the soon-to-be open Melvin R. Sampson. Those are efforts. We wanted to be take care of all species that were once relied upon by the nation. That being coho, that being sockeye, steelhead, Chinook. There's others out there, but we're trying to be a all species, I guess, so initiative, so to speak, and restore those fish that were once relied heavily on our elders. So that's kind of why we're here. We're just trying to provide fishing opportunities for enrolled members, sportsmen, and just, you know, the more fish out there, the healthier the healthier the river has to be, and then from there you got people watching the habitat. So once these fish return, that the habitat's suitable for spawners. So it's kind of a domino effect, but the reason we're here is to provide fishing opportunities for tribal members, sports, and that type of thing.
This work is important because salmon are important. I mean, they're a staple of our culture, our food, and a lot of people's livelihoods depend on this. And I know that the numbers have been bad, and things have gotten better, but we still have a long way to go. I like the fish. I really do. I've been around salmon like my whole life. My dad was a fisheries tech 4 when he retired about 5 years ago, and I've been around salmon. Even when I was little, we'd go on surveys with him, and I always just loved it. Being out in the river, the smell of it. Even if like you get slapped with a fish, it's still funny. Or if somebody else gets slapped with one, that's pretty funny too.
I think what I like about my job is actually giving back to when people have the opportunity to catch fish that we raised. When we have the opportunity to have we have an annual open house on the third week of July. We open it up to the public. We honor our veterans. We invite our elders, and it's a good time to show the facility, show our efforts, and it kind of gives back to the community. But and then I just like knowing that we're working to keep salmon and lamprey and the other fisheries that folks depend on out there, you know, on the forefront. So that's probably what I like about my job.
I'm actually a high school graduate. That's it. I just went to high school, graduated, and I just started getting experience by filling in with jobs with Melinda's crew. Todd and Melinda.
So the reason I got into fisheries was it was when I was younger, and it was kind of a turning point in my life as far as I was working at White Swan Lumber and it shut down, and I happened to be looking at some announcements, and at that time it was probably 95 or 94, and they were trying to there was applications out for Mount Hood Community College, which was a fish husbandry program, and they were seeking tribal members, and they would provide an opportunity to train, to educate, provide on-the-job training in hopes that in return you would come back and work at a facility and help assist Yakama Nation efforts in fish restoration. Well, that was back in '95. Lucky I was selected. We had a pretty intense interview process, and there was a board of about 7, and I was young at the time, but it was a good experience, and I was fortunate enough to get selected. Went to Mount Hood Community College, spent 2 years there, got a fish husbandry degree, and then from there had about 3 to 4 years on-the-job training with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife at Bonneville Fish Hatchery. And then at that time, this facility, the Cleellum, was to open, but it got delayed. So during that time, after I got my on-the-job training done, I decided to go back to school to get my 4-year degree. So there was a few of us that were in the Mount Hood program. We went on to get our 4-year degree, so it was in biology, emphasis on aquatics, and about the time I finished the 4-year degree, the Cleellum facility was open, and so that's where we were stationed. There was probably 3 of us at the time, and since '97 now, I could say one of the originals is managed in Klickitat Hatchery. Another is the manager of our Yakama Klickitat Fisheries project, that being Joe Blodgett. Jason Rao is manager of the Klickitat Hatchery. So it kind of, the benefits proved it was a good investment for the tribe, and for us as individuals, we have an obligation, to continue to work and assist the tribe in fish restoration. Long-winded answer.
No, that was
Okay.
Be willing to get dirty. I mean, this is a fun work. I mean, it pays really well. I was considered essential personnel, so I had a paycheck all through this COVID, this whole plague. And just, you're willing to get dirty, you're willing to get in there, do the work, and just do the job. I mean, that's all you gotta do, just be kind of tough. And if you can lift 44 pounds, that'd be really nice too.
So I guess educational wise, there's a couple opportunities that from our staff here. I think we got nine employees, ranging from a Fishculturist 2 to a Fishculturist 5. I like to say the Fishculturist 2 is our entry level. That requires you to have a license, so it's important to have your license and keep your license, be in good standing, have a good driving record. A Fishculturist 4, when you start stepping up to that, it would be beneficial if you completed a 2-year program. If a person went to Mount Hood Community College and once they graduated, they would probably be elevated to at least a 3 or a 4, just because they got the technical and the educational background. But a lot of our staff have chosen to go with the on-the-job training, enter in fisheries, and whether it's fish hatchery work or fish technician work, which is monitoring the rivers, estimated red counts, or just that type of thing. So, but I would encourage all of our younger folks, if there's an opportunity and they want to get quick employment, choose a 2-year degree. It's a technical degree, fish husbandry, and I know for a fact there's dollars out there. There's a program with Pacific Corps that funds dollars, and you could be trained at Mount Hood Community College. It's a beautiful community college. Knowing that I graduated from there in 91, 92, but it's a great program. They probably train all of Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife employees. I mean, not all of them, but a majority of them. And it's a good program. So there's that. I would encourage folks to do that. And then if you would like to get a 4-year degree, there's going to be opportunities out there. Keep your eyes open for Heritage College. I know Central Washington. There's other colleges out there, but talk to your counselors. Of course, like with any degree, you got to have good communication skills. You got to be pretty strong in your math, your sciences, but just basically have the will, the drive to succeed, and it'll happen.
Well, that does it for this edition of Yakama Nation Career Pathways. Special thanks to Charlie Strom and Marquita Pinkham for allowing us to interview them for this video. For more information on the Yakama Klickitat Fisheries Project or the Yakama Fisheries Program, visit their websites. This video was created by Mid-Columbia Fisheries Enhancement Group with funding provided by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's BWET program.